Hello, everyone. Welcome to our KaINexus Training Team Office Hours webinar, aka the Ryan Rippey Show, episode 18. Hope everyone here in the States enjoyed their Memorial Day weekend. My name is Ryan Rippey, and I'm the Senior Customer Enablement Manager over here at KaINexus. And today, I am sad to say that I will not be joined by my co-host and partner in crime, Matt Banna, Solutions Engineer here at KaINexus. Matt is actually on site with a customer in New Zealand, of all places, and I'm very happy for him. I finally felt comfortable and confident in Banna that he was truly a product expert and was ready to spread his knowledge to our customers without me. But I am a little upset. I kind of feel like I'm missing a limb over here. But I'm going to do my best to banter with myself over the next half hour here. So for those of you new to our webinar series, welcome aboard. The way this works is I will nerd out here for the next 30 minutes or so on a KaINexus topic that I will share with you all in just a bit. The purpose of these webinars is for us to review the hottest topics and latest and greatest features suggested by you, our customers. Before I reveal our topic for today, as always, just going to go over some housekeeping items. First and foremost, the webinar is being recorded, so we will go ahead and send out the slides and recording to everyone after the webinar. Also, if you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to type those into the chat box. I will do my best to answer those in real time, as well as at the very end of the webinar if there is some time left over. We do have quite a bit of material that I want to get through today, but without Banna distracting me, I think we should do okay. All right, let's take a look at our webinar topic for today. Drum roll, Banna. Oh, no, never mind. Sorry, I forgot. Banna's not here. All right, user administration. So chances are when your organization purchased KaINexus, you received a certain number of user licenses as part of that deal. So today's webinar is going to focus specifically on how to manage those users in the system. So the way that I've broken down the agenda for today is I'd like to start off with first going over what permission you need to see and do what we're going to go over today. So that is going to be entailed in the roles. You'll need a global or local user admin permission. So we'll go over what that looks like. From there, we're going to be spending our time in the people/user section. We'll go over, searching for users, how to filter, be able to view specific user details. Going to talk about the bulk change option in KaINexus. This is available for items. It's also available when you're managing your users. One of the things that I like to preach on is work smarter, not harder. And so excited to show you some of the bulk change options that you can use to make your life a little bit easier when you're managing your users in the system. We'll talk about being able to manage passwords for those organizations that aren't using single sign-on. We'll talk a little bit about the ability to set up notification preferences specifically for your users, adding and editing users. We'll talk about the different user status types. We'll probably spend a little bit of time in that area. I always seem to get a lot of questions on, full access versus frontline versus capture, and what are some of the other status types of users available with some of your add-on modules. So I built out a couple of personas. We can log in and kind of see what it looks like from those point of views. If you need to create or export a user list, show you how to do that, show you how to create user lists while we're there, and if you want to add a people list to a board, we'll go over that. And then we'll cap things off with some of the user attributes, if you will, setting up the titles, positions, employee types, and certifications within your organization as well. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to jump out of my slide deck here. We're going to dive into KaINexus. And so again, the first thing that I want to point out for our audience today is that you will need to have the proper role permission in order to take full advantage of the functionality that we're going to introduce on our webinar today. So what that is going to mean, if we go over here to the admin section, I'm going to start off in roles. And so the specific permissions that I'm referring to, if I just go ahead and create a new role here, I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and I'm going to be focusing on the admin section. So one of the things that you're going to notice here is that there are a couple of checkbox options for global user administrator and local user administrator. So local user administrator, I'll kind of start here, and there's little info icons that you can hover over to get some further context as to what these permissions are, what they allow you to do, who typically gets these. This local user administrator permission can be set up if you want to have maybe a manager of a specific department, if you want them to be able to create, edit, and manage users within their location and maybe sub-departments underneath that location, you can give them this local user administrator role. Once you've given that checkbox, you'll see that there are a couple of other checkboxes that show up underneath that. So the first is this grantable roles checkbox. So this allows you to give that person who has this local user administrator permission to edit other people's roles in their location. So that they can limit which roles, you can limit, excuse me, if you click the grantable roles here, you can limit what specific roles they can assign by choosing those roles here in the dropdown. If you don't check any of these, it's just going to allow you to choose any of those. If you have this box unchecked, people are not going to be able to change those roles when they're editing or creating users within their location. So that's the first checkbox under there. The second is this receive requests. So checking the box next to receive requests will let people assigned with this role. They'll be responsible for handling any new account requests, setting users' passwords, helping users reset their passwords when needed, as well as activating their accounts. So all of those types of requests will come through specifically to that person if they have that checkbox as well. Now with the global user administrator, same deal. If you go with the global route, you'll see those other two checkboxes. This gives a little bit more access in the user section though. So in this case, I'm allowed to manage users within the entire organization in KaINexus. And additionally, I'm able to go in and do all of the things that I'm going to show today, as well as set up the titles, positions, employee type certifications that we're also going to take a look at. So this is a little bit more of a super user permission here. Specifically for the role with the user that I've logged into, I have this global user administrator. So if you have that particular permission, you should be able to see and do everything that I'm going to go through here today. All right, now that we've kind of talked a little bit about the permissions that are going to guide the rest of our webinar, let's go over specifically to the user section. So with that global user administrator role, I now have access to this users section. So I'm going to jump into users here. And so first thing we're going to talk about is how to search for users. Pretty easy. You'll see there is a search people bar here. So if I wanted to search for example, maybe I'm looking for Brenda in the system, I can't find her, I can go ahead and type in her name and then I'll be able to see her here. Don't forget that you can also search for people in the search bar at the top of the screen. If I was searching for Brenda here, there is a people toggle. So you'll see she'll pop up here on the top, but if you want to drill down into just specific KaINexus users, you can just stick to this people option here, and then you'll be able to see users specifically from here as well. Now, when I actually go ahead and click on Brenda, I'm going to get a snapshot of all of Brenda's user profile information here, and I can actually view her activity in the system. So I can see what sort of projects, improvements, tasks she's a team member on. I can also see her personal impact metrics in here as well. So based on all of those items, you know, how much cost savings, quality improvements, everything that's been associated with Brenda here in the system. Looks like I had a question come through. I'm new to KaINexus. I would like to know the agenda or topics. Okay. So just again, a recap, this particular training session today, Heath, is going to be for user administrators. So if you don't have the proper permission that dictates that, you probably won't get too much value here today. So we thank you for signing in, and we look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. All right, so let's come back to our users list here. Now, here in the users section, you'll notice on the left-hand side that we have the location panel. So the location panel is going to mimic the network that you've set up in KaINexus, so that organizational hierarchy where all of your users are living, where all of your project and improvement work is being associated with. So let's clear out our search people here. Let's bring up everybody again. If I wanted to see, for example, all of the users specifically within this network location here, once I go ahead and select that location, it's going to filter down my list of users to just those users with that specific location, right? Now, in addition, you can also come in here. If you hit the little drop down arrow, you can see the entire network here. You can come in and search your locations. I want to clear out this, do a quick refresh here. You'll also be able to search for level types. So if you want to see specific users that are just at a department level, we'll take a look at that level type option that's available in here as well. There it is. So hitting that little filter icon, you'll see the level type. If I want to say, for example, hey, let me just show me users that are living within a particular department. Once I select that and hit done, hit this little icon here, it's going to actually pull up now all of my users that are specific to a department level type here. Okay. Let's go ahead and clear out our search options here. I'm going to go ahead and minimize my location panel. So taking a look at our user list, if we want to go ahead and sort any of these columns that we're looking at, you can simply just click on the column itself, and that'll go ahead and sort alphabetically. You'll also be able to, from the little arrow drop down here, you can sort ascending or descending, and you'll notice there's also a columns option. So here with the columns, you can add additional columns to be able to display information about your users. So maybe I want to see, for example, a column of the last time that this user had logged into the system. I can add that column in here. I can see maybe their hire date. I can go ahead and add that in here as well. Now, these columns are drag and drop functionality available. So if, for example, I want to, hey, let's maybe move this last login over to the end, I can go ahead and grab that and then drop that over here as well. In addition, if I want to remove some of these columns, maybe I can come in here and say, hey, you know what, actually hire date's not relevant to me, so let's pull that off of here. Now, in terms of taking additional steps into filtering your users, if you come up to the ellipses here in the top right, you'll see the option to filter. So I'll go ahead and click on filter here. Here's where we can come in and filter down. We kind of talked about location. We saw how that worked with the location panel. So you can filter down based on a specific location. You can filter your users down based on specific role that they have in the system. We'll talk about the different statuses here in just a bit. If your organization has your titles, positions, employee types, and certifications set up, you can use those as filtering options as well. This engagement here is very useful. You can quickly see maybe who has logged in or not logged in, who's used the system, who maybe hasn't submitted an improvement yet here. Have the ability to filter down based on a hire date, some additional filter criteria, and then if you're using badges module, you can also filter down people based on a specific badge that they might have in the system. So once you've come in here and included any additional filter options here, make sure you hit save and apply to go ahead and show those. Maybe, for example, I only want to see all of my full access users in here. I'll go ahead and clear out some of these others, and then I can go ahead and say, I also only want to see people with an admin user role. So once I go ahead and apply that here, here's Carla. She fits that criteria. So that's how we can go ahead and take advantage of the filters. All right, let's clear these out. Bring back some of those other guys we had here. Now I want to talk about bulk change. This is probably one of my favorite features in KaINexus. To take advantage of bulk change, you're going to come back again to the ellipses. Under the ellipses, you'll select the bulk change option here. And then you'll notice on the left-hand side, it gives you this new bulk change drop-down where you can choose what that specific change action you want in the system is going to be. So if you want to change the status of a user, again, we're going to talk about status. This is typically best used if, for example, you have maybe 20 users that you've just done some internal training with. They're in the system as maybe an inactive status, and you want to go ahead and activate them, send that activation email so that they can log into the system. In that case, you can come in here and choose those specific users once you filter down your list, and then you can change that status and say, hey, let's make them full access. Go ahead and change that. And what that'll do is send out that activation email so they can log in and start to use KaINexus. So that's a great way to take advantage of the bulk change there. Changing location, this is another great opportunity if people have shifted in departments or need to have an additional location added to their profile, you can change locations. Same thing goes for changing roles in the system. Maybe somebody who was once just a team member is now a team leader or a team manager, and you want to give them that role in the system, you can quickly do so. Organizations that are using the badge module, you can change badges here. You can send out an activation email. You can change digest days. So for anybody not familiar with the digest, every full access user gets a digest email at least once a week. This will be based off of course, any items that you're involved with that there's been some sort of change on. So that email specifically is going to contain all the important updates made to your items since your last digest was sent. When new users are added to KaINexus, the default setup for that digest email is every day. And so that can be a little bit of an overkill. So if you want to come in here and quickly select a whole bunch of users and change their digest days to maybe just Mondays and Fridays, you can come in here and quickly do that. Next, you can also change your subscription days. So for subscriptions, if you have subscribed to a custom list or to a board, maybe somebody else has subscribed you to a board, you're going to get a subscription email. Again, this is at least once a week. That's going to contain information about and links to that specific list or those boards. So if you, again, want to change those subscription days, I think by default, it goes to every day. So if that's a little bit of overkill, again, you can come in here and change just the specific days that you want to receive those subscription emails as well. And then the last couple options here, you can change the digest subscription time. So if you want to get that, maybe 9 a.m. Monday morning when you log into the system, you can set that up. And if you need to turn email on or off for KaINexus for a specific user, that option is available here in the bulk change as well. Now, as I hover over some of these users, let's jump out of our bulk change. You just come back in here and deselect that. So if I hover over, for example, Carly here in my list, you'll notice on the right-hand side that I get a couple of these icons that'll pop up. So first and foremost, we have some stuff specific to password and activation. So from this drop-down, if you need to set a user's password, maybe send them a password reset email or send them an activation email, you can do so. Obviously, for any of you that are set up with single sign-on for your KaINexus, you won't need to necessarily worry about setting those passwords or sending the password reset email. You'll be able to manage specific users' notification preferences. So if you want to go in there and start to set up specific notifications for a user, you have the ability to do so. Need to make any edits to the user's profile information. We'll go through what that looks like. And then the last option here, the X, is to inactivate a user. So a lot of the times when you see that X, it's referring to maybe deleting. And when you're deleting something in KaINexus, it's gone for good. When you're inactivating users, typically you'll do this when someone with a KaINexus account has left the organization, for example. You're not necessarily going to delete them because inactive users, you'll still be able to maintain a record of their improvement work. But by going ahead and inactivating them, what that's going to do is it's going to prevent them from accessing the system again in the future. So Keep in mind that if, for example, if you have somebody who's inactive and maybe you need to reactivate them, or if you're just trying to find a quick view of any inactive users, when you're using that filter option, you'll notice that in the status, inactive isn't shown here by default. So just keep in mind that you do have to come in, and from the drop down, you'll see that that inactive is an option in here as well. So if you're wondering why you can't find somebody, just come in here, quickly add that inactive. Chances are that they might be in an inactive status. All right, so let's talk actually about creating and editing users and everything that goes into that user profile. I'm going to go ahead and create a user. Everything that we're going to see on the screen would be similar if I came in here and edited a user. So creating a new user in the system. We have a couple of fields that are going to be required here. The first is going to be the username. Many of our customers assign usernames to users that match either their email, employee ID number, maybe their username on their work computers. Any of those are great usernames because they're easy for users to remember, but you can use any convention you want when you're coming up with a username. Just remember that these usernames must be unique per person. So maybe I'm setting up a username here for Banna and myself. Now, first name and last name are also going to be required. So I'm going to say Banna Rippey. Now, for email, it's highly recommended that when possible, each of your accounts has an associated email address. This just makes KaINexus much easier for your average user because it ensures that they receive all of those important notifications about their account as well as about their improvement work that they're working on, right? So you can include an email in here. Maybe I want to set up myself. Now, physical location, this can be a city, or let's say, for example, your organization has several buildings. Maybe you want to put the name of the building that the user works in. Again, this is just a way that you'll be able to further filter down users if you're looking for people within a specific physical location. Language can be set up if your organization has multi-language set up. By default, you can set that up based on where you are in the network. You'll have a specific language that will translate KaINexus when you log in. If they want to come in here and choose a different language, maybe for example, I want KaINexus to translate in French for me, I'll be able to do so here as well. Mobile phone, work phone, pagers, believe it or not, still a lot of people using pagers. You can come in here and put all of that information. Employee ID field is available. And then for our employee type, titles, positions, certifications, we're going to talk all about those. These are, again, just additional attributes, if you will, on a user that you can filter down by. You can also include your hire date, and then if you're using the badges add-on module, you can come in here and manually assign badges to users as well. Now, we filled out a majority of our required fields when setting up our user. The next required thing you'll see here is the network location. So we do have to choose a specific location for this user. You can choose as many network locations as relevant. I'm just going to put them at maybe a top level here with our ABC healthcare system. Roles, while not required, typically you're going to have a role for a person as well. Again, you can set up and give access to as many roles for a person as well. So the one thing I want to come back to is the status. I get a lot of questions based on what the various status options mean. So right now, this user that I'm creating, I have in a full access status. Full access, they are fully functional within KaINexus. They'll be able to log in, have full access determined by their role, of course. They can work on, be assigned to work on any specific items in the system that are set up for them, and then they'll receive those notifications. Now, from the drop down here, we also have frontline users. So I'm just going to actually pull up another window here so we can kind of see what a frontline user looks like. Jump back into our showroom. So we're going to be working with Mr. Ronnie Jackson. Ronnie Jackson is a frontline user in KaINexus. And so the idea behind the Frontline User is giving a more simple KaINexus experience. Okay, so you'll notice when Ronnie logs in that Ronnie doesn't have access to the left navigation bar over here. He can still search for items, but for example, he's not going to be able to create custom lists, view the calendar, people reports, anything like that, right? Frontline users do have access to items, so they're still able to interact with them similar to a full access user. They can be added to the team of any of those items. They can create items for which they have the correct roles for. So this Frontline user has just a basic project idea and task available for them. They won't be able to create any boards, right? They won't be able to edit cards on boards, anything like that. And so setting up the Frontline user, you need to dictate which sort of roles in the system are going to be Frontline based, as well as what boards are going to be Frontline based. It's something that as a admin, you have the ability to do so, but I would definitely encourage you to reach out to your customer experience lead if you're interested in trying to use Frontline users within your organization and get that set up in KaINexus. All right, let's jump out of this. We'll come back in here. The next status I want to talk about is capture. These are used for people who will never need to log into KaINexus, but deserve credit for their improvement work, right? So you'll be able to add capture users to the team of items, so you can associate improvement work with them, but they're not going to receive emails from KaINexus. They can't log into the system. And again, they can be added to the items team though. Now, if you are taking advantage of the incident module, we'll take a look at what a incident status looks like here. Let's again open up another window here and we'll go into our showroom. And now we're going to be logging in with Sir Ian McGregor. Now, with incident users, when they log into the system, they are similar to a full access, but they can only submit incidents, and they'll only be able to see incidents that they have submitted or maybe that they're a follower on. So you'll see when I log in here as Ian, I'm immediately taken to a list of incidents rather than a board. I don't have access to that left navigation bar, so I can't access boards, calendar, people reports, anything like that. I'm only working specifically within these items. I can only be a part of the incidents team as an author or a follower. And so for those specific incidents that have been logged, the details, files, links, I'll be able to add those on submission. But once I've submitted, you'll see here that I submitted that Banner is missing. This is my incident, but I can't come in here and make any additional edits now. So this is the experience of an incident user. If incidents is something that you are tracking in KaINexus and don't have that incident module and want to take advantage of that and use incident users, again, be sure to reach out to your customer experience lead. The next type of status we're going to talk about here is going to be wallboard. So with wallboard, this is more of kind of a read-only user. So let me open up another window here. We're going to log in as Javier Garcia, who is set up as a wallboard user in KaINexus. So again, this is specific to our wallboard module. This is going to essentially be a read-only user. The left navigation bar is removed. You can still search and see items that you have access to. Can't access the user menu, for example, in the top right here. So essentially what that means is that you can't log out. Typically, when you're using the wallboard user, organizations will have maybe a big TV that's up in the break room so that you can kind of see as boards will rotate through and will update in real time, right? The create button's gone, so you're not creating items. You're not making changes to any of these existing items. You can click in and view the details of these items, but you'll notice any editability will not show up on the item itself. So this is more of the wallboard experience. Again, typically this is used when you want to display a whole bunch of boards on maybe a big screen in a break room or something like that. You could take advantage of the wallboard experience. And then the last kind of add-on module that actually goes pretty well with the wallboard is going to be the Kiosk User. So the last status here, we'll talk setup and active, but Kiosk is another add-on module here. I'm going to open up another incognito window. I promised for the last time. I'm going to log into showroom. We're actually going to do /kiosk. Oops. Showroom.com/kiosk. And here we're going to log in as Mr. Keith Johnson. So with the kiosk experience, think setting up maybe a KaINexus station where there's a desktop or an iPad that someone's using. This is going to be strictly submission. So you'll be able to come in and choose the specific user. And then once you've chosen that user and hit create here, you'll be able to create, for example, whatever templates you want to set up. So you can fill out all of this information here for your improvement in this case. These will then go into KaINexus with that wallboard, for example. You can view those up on the big screen, but this is more for employees that maybe aren't on a personal computer all day. They might be on the shop floor using a shared workstation. So this is just allows them to submit items on the fly kind of as they're passing by, right? So those are the various statuses there. Again, some of those aren't going to show up unless you have the add-on module in your organization. But for those of you that do, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an insight into what that's going to look like. Now, the last two statuses here are our setup and our inactive status. So setup, this is often a status that's used temporarily during the onboarding or setup process of your users. So they're not going to receive any emails from KaINexus. They can't log in. They can't be added to any items team. As I mentioned earlier, if you added some users into the system in a setup status, went through some training with them, and then wanted to switch their status to full access, that would then give them the ability to activate their account, log in, and start to begin their improvement work. And then the last status, again, is the inactive. So these users, they don't receive emails from KaINexus. They can't log in the system, can't be added to any items, teams in the system. They are essentially when you need to delete a user who is no longer in the organization. All right, I realize we're a couple of minutes over. Do have a few more things that we want to go through here that were on the agenda. So if you guys are able to stick around, I definitely appreciate it. Now, we talked a lot about these statuses here. If you want to take advantage of some reportings around those types of statuses, over in the report section, if you have access here, you can come over to system. And so you'll have two reports. The first is your user counts over time. This lets you track the number of each status type of user in your organization. You can see how those change over time. And the other report that you can visualize this information is the user count by location. So this will let you drill down into the total number of each status type of user within each of these locations here. So we were going in, we were creating that user there. Just a couple of things to keep in mind when you're creating a new user in KaINexus. The first is kind of where are they located in the network, right? What are they going to need to have insight into? And then what role do they have? What are they going to need to be able to create and work on in KaINexus? Again, you can have as many network locations or roles as needed. Whichever role has the most powerful permissions is going to trump any role that's less than that. So keep that in mind as well. One of the things that I like to recommend to everyone is I would create dummy personas. And what I mean by that is a lot of the times when you have users on the front lines that are reaching out to you because they can't see something or just something's not working for them, creating a dummy persona with a specific role and then putting them in the same location with the same role that the user who's reaching out to you has. This allows you to start to triage what those issues are, and then more importantly, you can see what that persona can see, right? A lot of the times, people who have access to this global user administrator permission, you're usually a power user in KaINexus, right? And so when you're logging in, you see a whole bunch of options in the create dropdown. You see a whole bunch of boards, and so it's very hard to understand what it looks like from a certain personas standpoint. And so I would definitely encourage you to create some dummy personas based on the different roles that you have. You can simply go in, set the password username for that persona. You can go in and change the location based on who's reaching out to you so you can see what they can see. And then just to make sure that you're not over on how many users you have, just inactivate them. And when you need to use them again, you can reactivate them, put them back in a full access status, and then go through the same process. If you have any questions on kind of what that looks like, reach out to me. I'd be happy to walk you through that so you can get the most out of those personas. Okay, a couple more things I want to point out here. The next thing is right now we have our users. When we were in the filtering option, once you've kind of set up your columns, you set up your filters, if you want to create a new list so that you can quickly access that list of users, you can do so. Clicking this will have you name that list, and then you'll be able to visualize those people lists. If you come up here where it says entire organization, clicking that drop down, you'll start to see those other lists. So here's another place where you can create a list as well. This will take you right back to that filter users screen. So you can have quickly accessible lists of users that show up here. The other option you saw in that filters was to add to a board. So another thing you can take advantage of is what's called a people list card on a board. This particular card is best used if you want to just have a visual of maybe you want to filter this down so you can see all of your black belts that are in KaINexus, right? Maybe you're taking a look at a specific A3 project and want to put a black belt on there. You can quickly see all of your users on a card that have that black belt. An example that I can show you is, let's take advantage of my training environment here. A lot of the times what I like to set up for customers that are getting ready to launch is a welcome board. And on that welcome board, I'll include a people list. And what that people list will include, come to this welcome to KaINexus, is you can just quickly see the name of the person. So you can see who's in KaINexus, what location they're in, right? What department they're out of, last time they logged in. I usually set these up with badges. So if you want to have some maybe first steps for your new users when they log into KaINexus, maybe they have to create their first improvement, complete their first task, something like that. You can set up a badge with the badges add-on module, and then visualize those people that have gone through kind of that KaINexus certification, right? So similar to this is maybe you want to add a column here for the certifications that we'll talk about, and then you can quickly see all of your people filtered down that have that black belt certification. This is just another way to kind of take advantage of the people section and have that show up in a people list card on a board. All right, coming back to the people section, a few more things I want to point out here. Let's go into users. You have the ability to export. So if you come in here and filter down a specific list, you want to export that information out of KaINexus. Up in the ellipses here, you can export. We do have the ability to import users as well. And so if you are looking to do a bulk import of users, maybe you just upgraded your KaINexus license and have 100 new users you want to get into the system, we can provide you the proper Excel documentation that you can start to capture all of their profile information. And then when you send that back to us, we can get those users bulk uploaded into the system for you so that you don't have to come in here and manually create one user at a time. So just wanted to point that out as well. That's everything here on the people section. Again, I want to kind of cap things off here. If I come back to admin, as a global user administrator, you'll have options to set up titles, positions, employee types, and certifications. Titles, this is like a degree as opposed to a position, which is going to be more like a job function. So for example, if you work in the healthcare industry, your organization might need to set up titles such as MD, RN, CRNA. When you come in here, you'll hit the plus sign. You can create that specific title. You can group and organize them using folders. And then once you've created that title, for example, you'll give it a name, description for some further context. You can choose an icon and a color, all that fun stuff here. And again, this is just going to be a user attribute, right? You can now filter down and see all of your MDs in KaINexus. For positions, opposite of titles, this is more like a job function as opposed to the title, which we just recognize as more of a degree. So for example, maybe you're working in the manufacturing industry. Maybe you want to have positions such as your VP of sales, CEO, COO, things like that. You can go ahead and use the positions. Employee types, this typically describes the terms of a person's employment, right? So for example, you might want to identify which employees are full-time, part-time, contractors. You can set that up with employee types. And then the last one that we kind of hinted at was the certifications. So this would be a confirmation of an employee's qualifications or their education. For example, if you have employees working with the Lean Six Sigma and have gone through those courses, you might want to set up those certifications for the different belt types, right? Maybe there's the white belt, yellow belt, green belt, black belt. That's how we've have it set up here. So again, you'd be able to filter down lists based on those certifications as well. All right, we did go quite a few over. I thought that we would actually be wrapping up fairly quickly without Vanna here, but that's everything that I had on the agenda for today. Before we kind of take things out, if there are any questions, feel free to jump in right now and add those into the chat box. As you're going ahead and typing those in, just want to thank everyone again for the time today. I hope these webinars are valuable. We definitely appreciate your feedback. I know they're a lot more fun when Banna's here, but definitely be sure to sign up for our next Banna Rippey show, which we'll be hosting probably sometime towards the end of June. We have a new release coming out mid-June, so that's probably going to be what we'll be focusing on. To check out all of our webinars from this year and last year, head over to KaINexus.com/webinars/office hours. So you can see all of the 2019 webinars that we've done, also catch up on some of the webinars from 2018. If you haven't done so already, register now for KaINexicon 2019, hosted here in Austin, Texas, September 24th through 25th. We'll have continuous music, drinks, food, and improvement, of course. You would be crazy to miss out on this spectacular event. Who knows? You may even get the chance to meet the hosts of the Banna Rippey Show live in person, assuming Banna decides to come back from his wonderful trip in New Zealand. If you have any questions or need assistance with the configuration of the features you saw here today, taking advantage of those personas that I mentioned as well, please reach out to your KaINexus customer experience lead. In the meantime, we definitely also encourage you to check out our support page at support.kainexus.com. Everything that I went over today has pretty much its own support page that will walk you through the same buttons and everything that I clicked on with our time today. All right, well, it doesn't look like any other questions have come through. Thank you all again for the time. Hope this was valuable. I'm Ryan Rippey, and he's also Ryan Rippey. So keep improving, and see you guys next time.